Eugene Jarvis, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
Really good. Holding your phone in a hotel room? Where are you at, man?
I'm in Helsinki, so I'm at the launch party is tomorrow for Nex Machina. So, we had a few too many vodkas tonight, but I'm still hanging in there.
All right, that's perfect. So yeah, you've been working with Housemarque on this Nex Machina game. What's this period of your life been like? Is it more interesting than average times, or is this just your life?
It's kind of a new thing for me because I've been doing the arcade thing for like decades, and so working with kind of state-of-the-art, although retro gaming, but state-of-the-art tech and PS4 console and stuff, it's kind of a new thing, and it's kind of opened a whole new world to me.
Well, how detailed are you getting? Like, what are those, design meetings like with Housemarque and you?
Basically, the heavy lifting was done a couple of years ago. This game has been going on for 3.5 years.
Jesus.
And it started out at DICE conference. We're just kind of hanging out in Vegas, and I guess they say what goes in Vegas stays in Vegas, but somehow this got out of Vegas. So I don't know if that's a good thing or not. But we've been trying to do this, the ultimate retro bullet hell twin shooter, apocalyptic scenario. So we'll see how it happens.
Well, it seems like people are digging it so far. Hey, Eugene, I wonder. Yes. I think your thumb's covering up the camera a little bit.
Oh,
there we go. You know the way to hold it. Yeah. You got it, man. Our audio listeners will love it.
Little tech thing here. Okay.
So obviously, Housemarque wants to pick the brain of a game industry legend. What do you get out of the experience? What were you hoping to accomplish with Nex Machina?
It's just kind of get into this world of console gaming, and I guess we're on Steam too, and just hang out with some young kids that are crazy and have some fresh ideas. Kind of get some of the cool old school stuff going, but put a whole new spin on it, and I think that the tech they've brought to this game it's pretty awesome. There's I guess over 1,000 different shader programs running in this game. The particles, the plasma beams. It's voxels. It's pretty amazing tech for twin stick shooter.
Yeah, it's wild, man. So working with people at Housemarque who I think they've expressed they're huge fans of your work from the past. Did you learn anything new from working with fanboys like that? Anything you have learned to appreciate about your own work?
I think you get a new perspective on things, and it's funny, you can get kind of jaded over the years. You see the same thing over and over, and to you things are old hat, but it really, I think they have shown, with the energy and fresh ideas they brought to this whole, spiritual successor to Robotron or whatever you want to call it. I think there's been some great twin stick shooters over the year. One recent one was, Geometry Wars. And, I think it's just the genre there's just something really cool about that genre, just complete overload. Some people call it bullet hell, but just having, masses of enemies, all just pure gameplay, and great strategy, levels, traps, secret missions, secret rooms, boss monsters. It's just cool stuff, and I think they've really taken it, from the 1990s or 2000s. Now they're in, we're in the 2017. So it's cool to just see a fresh crew of incredible guys take a hack at this thing.
Yeah, and what do they think they get out of working with you outside of just working with a legend? What is your broad perspective on the entire arc of this genre provide them?
I think I sometimes wonder about that.
Other than a higher booze tab.
But I think there's some basic like flow principles, human interface, and I think you really got to watch out. With the tech today, you really got to kind of go that tightrope of not completely overloading the player. You want to just take them to the point of absolute terror, but you don't want to push them over the cliff too soon. And so there's a balancing there, and there's how much can you really take, and you want it kind of so that it hurts so good, but not to just kill you in 3 seconds.
Well, I wonder if like that younger generation of game developers are coming at it thinking like, okay, we need this to be hard. It seems like there's a fan base out there for hard games. And I mean, the go-to example is like, we want to make the Dark Souls of an arcade experience. And you come from the earlier generations where it's like, it has to be a brutal arcade game. So are you telling the younger generation to maybe be softer and to be less Dark Souls than they want to be?
I think, thankfully, I think they ignore most of what I say. So, I mean, sadly, I'm not the target market for this game. I think there's some, and the other thing you got to realize is that in the last 40 or 50 years, when Robotron came out, it's got 2 sticks. If you'd have come out with a dual shock controller in 1982, no one would have been able to handle it. It would have been just incredible insanity.
They would have burned it on a cross, yeah.
And I think that the skill of the player, today's player, is far outstrips any kind of player we had back in the 80s. And I think and also kind of just the spatial awareness of people that have lived video games, grown up with video games. It's really we have some amazing esports type talent out there that can really deal with some of this stuff they're dishing out, where I might need a few cheat codes and a immortality code or something to get through some of these levels.
So you talk about like trying to stress making a clean design for Housemarque's take on Nex Machina over there. Do you feel like that's something that's lost in modern video games, even on the AAA scale, where there's just too much going on and it kind of loses that simplicity of clarity with old arcade experiences?
I think the cool thing, I think there is that danger where the graphics becomes driving at everything, and so you spend all your time, and the graphics are always staring you in the face. So you always want to perfect that first, because it's like the dog, put something bad on the carpet. You want to clean that up first, and so these graphics are always hitting you in the face, and I think you can overly focus on the look to the point of and maybe we all game developers are kind of frustrated movie directors, and so I think we get too involved with the look and the cinematography and don't focus on the gameplay and some of the strategic flow, the tactics, kind of that rich interplay, especially like enemy dynamics, how the enemy reacts to the player, how to create different tactical variety, so that as you go from wave to wave, you can really get a non-monotonous experience, and it's so you really, I think the cool thing is they have a lot of the graphical stuff, since there's so much algorithmically generated stuff in this game, with the voxels and the particle beams, the particle explosions. They actually had a lot of time to really focus on the gameplay, and I think that's in the old school days. You only had like 10 pixels, so all you had was gameplay, and so I think now this game is really putting the line in the sand on incredible, insane gameplay.
So what's been the most interesting part for you working for 3 years on this game now?
I think it's just seeing the whole process. Just seeing the. It's amazing. Over the last 3.5 years, we've probably restarted the game 2 or 3 times, completely threw everything out. And there was some. At some point, like game number 2, I thought it was pretty good. And then I go to some meeting in Helsinki and we threw everything out. It sucked. So.
I like when the creative consultant's supposed to be bringing us the experts. Like, no, we're good. Just ship this. I
thought it was good, but it's like. The team is really, these Finnish guys. There's a long winter up here, and there's after a while you even get tired of drinking, so you actually have to work, and And I mean, it's amazing the talent here. It's pretty. I mean, you think about some of the great, titles even in the mobile era. With Angry Birds and Supercell guys and all that stuff. I mean, there's some amazing talent up here in Scandinavia.
What do you think that is? What is it about the culture? What have you learned about Housemarque culture?
Yeah, I think it's the a really extreme focus, and I think since winter is so long, there's very little distraction. I remember years back. I think it was Konami or somebody was starting a studio in Hawaii, um, and nothing ever came out of the Hawaiian studio. I mean, because who wants to work in Hawaii? I mean, it's it's like you're never going to create anything in Hawaii. So you have to go to some really, challenging climate where work is actually the most interesting thing.
So you're making a lot of trips over there?
Just a couple, and I mean, it's a long flight. I've been about once a year. I've been out here, and we do a lot of Skyping, and we rendezvous in Chicago, and had a great time at PSX. I guess it was back in December. But it's amazing what we can do in Skype and just working the game on Steam and back and forth. And I mean, these guys are Harry Kruger, who's the team leader on this thing. I mean, the guy is incredible. I mean, it's almost like we have ESP and answer each other's questions. So it's amazing how much they have really just kind of taken the ball and run with it. And to the point where I almost think like we're like mind melding sometimes.
So does it feel that different from your work at Raw Thrills? Does it feel like you're plugging back into a different aspect of the game industry here?
Yeah, it is more about the hardcore experience where, I mean, this is the arcade was back in the early 80s. I mean, the arcade was the scene. We didn't have mobile. We didn't have really console was just 2600. There was really no PC scene, no tablets, of course. And so it's kind of returned to that hardcore, pure gaming experience where the arcade, we've evolved more to kind of more casual but theatrical, kind of adventure, joyride type thing, almost like a roller coaster ride kind of a game where we go for a really awesome, visceral, emotional experience of 4 or 5 minutes, and that's really what people kind of want, that little bite-sized thing. Where back in the day of the arcade, I mean, guys would play Robotron for days, and I think now we're coming back in the console. There is that hardcore player that really wants to have an incredible experience and play a game that could challenge them for months.
So the old arcade fans are gravitating towards the downloadable scene on consoles, and then the modern arcade experiences for people walking by who want something theatrical, and they'll pop in a couple quarters.
Yeah, they just want to have a good time and just have an adventure, a quick adventure. They don't want to sign up for give them your credit card for a monetization nightmare or anything. They just want to have a good time and really play a movie. At Raw Thrills, some of our recent titles, The Walking Dead. We did recently Jurassic Park, and actually we did some retro stuff with Space Invaders and stuff. But it's experiences that are they're kind of intense, but very accessible to almost any level of skill, and kind of really just go right to it and have a great time in a few minutes.
Is it because I'm trying to think of why a competitive scene wouldn't work in modern arcades? Is it just it needs kind of that culture and discussion, and it's more passive these days?
I think it depends on the location. There actually is kind of a revival of a certain hardcore scene in kind of the Barcade era, and which are really about. I mean, some of them are more about drinking beer, but there's some real kind of a revival of really arcade players and in that Barcade scene who really want to play games. One game that is kind of cool. I don't know if you played it. It's called Killer Queen.
No.
Which is a 10-player arcade experience, 10-player simultaneous and it's head to head, 2 teams of 5 people. So it's kind of like the social team play kind of thing, which in meat space as opposed to on the internet.
Meat space. So that's the scene that makes it the happiest when you're wandering through arcades. Is that Barcade revival?
I think it's cool to see such passionate people about arcade gaming, and so that it's kind of a new wrinkle that I think it's going to produce some whole new form of arcade games.
Yeah.
Which is and there's a lot of within like the student and the indie game community. There's a lot of kind of one-off original arcade experiences. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, people are actually creating like a one-off arcade game that's their passion and throwing it out in some of these barcades, and it's just awesome to see kind of that new energy in the scene.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, probably just 'cause I was just there this weekend, but I'm curious what you think of Las Vegas and casinos when someone who has studied the arcade for their entire lives walks through a casino. Do you think there's anything that casino and that whole industry could learn from you guys and vice versa?
Well, they are kind of similar, and it's the weird thing is it's kind of like the arcade. A lot of the arcade players of 20, 30 years ago are now in the casinos playing those games.
Interesting. Okay.
And the casino games have really incorporated. I mean, I don't know if you've been in the mood to waste a few $100, but there's some amazing gameplay in some of those casino games today, and they've got massive curved screens, and there's some real spectacle going on in that game, and actually some former arcade designers are having great success in that casino scene today.
It's interesting you call it gameplay. You think, I mean, all the gameplay just looks idiotic, and whenever I walk by, we think some are actually interesting pieces of game design in there.
There are. I mean, you have to get about $50 in to really see the good stuff.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll test out every one, Eugene. It's going to be an expensive process, but I think I can do it.
But no, there's some incredible bonus games that you can activate, it is surprising the amount of great gameplay graphics that you see in some of the casino games.
Yeah, I guess so. So just what's your perspective on the industry these days? Do you like to stay up to date on all the games coming out? Do you go to GDC every year? How much do you care about the modern video game industry outside of the arcades?
I do try to get around. I go to GDC. I'll be at DICE now and then. I'll check out. It's kind of an interesting retro game community out there too. I'll go around to some of the different retro gaming shows, PAX shows. There's a really cool one out in California Extreme, which is a great retro arcade and also pinball show. And I've kind of really my roots were pinball games. So I'm also seeing this big revival in pinball, which is totally crazy, and it's like, I think it's kind of a reaction to the weird thing is like, video games, we kind of won, now it's like everything is a freaking video game. I mean, Google's a video game. Your text editor is a video game. Your, the internet, the website of your, Quicken Loans is a video game.
Dating.
I mean, it's like all of life is a video game now. And so I think people sometimes just like, hey, let's go offline. And so it's weird how pinball is kind of this mechanical, actual 3D entity. And there's like this resurgence of interest in this kind of crazy electromechanical game. Kind of, I guess, just something, a break from our screens,
People want to stay. Yeah, they're passionate about being the underdog and the underdog like fandom and entertainment sector, and it's like, okay, it's not video games anymore. Gotta go more niche. Old pinball, that's the way to go.
Exactly. But there is a scene of making new pinball games, and although I guess one of the latest thing is putting in LCD screens in pinball games. So I don't know. I don't know if we can ever get away from these screens. They're too cruel, man.
Sorry to make you look in one and do this interview. So looking back on your entire career, is there one period, one era that you're still fascinated by that you find yourself thinking a lot about?
I guess obviously the craziest era I think is back in, a few years back in the early 80s when I was just the crazy titles, Defender, Robotron, Stargate, and then Narc, Smash TV, kind of that golden era, and it's just when two guys could go into a closet and crank out a game in 6 months and be on top of the world, and there was a great kind of rush, and it was kind of like being an author almost, like when you're writing a book, you don't have like a team of 1,000 people, it's just a couple of guys, very personal, handcrafted message of authors, and so it was kind of a magical creative era, which kind of came back a bit, I think, in the app era, in the mobile era, with there was kind of this incredible revolution of kind of the new touchscreen interface and stuff like Angry Birds and Candy Crush and all the there was like, I remember Doodle Jump, I love that game, and just an incredible amount of great apps that have been come out of the mobile community, and Fruit Ninja,
Yeah, but there's just something sweet about like having that time, just express yourself quickly, just get an idea out there, get feedback, maybe make money, go back, do it again. It's just that quick turnaround. That's the thrill for you.
Yeah, and you kind of you're feeding off the energy of the players and really interfacing, and it's kind of the simplicity of not having 100-man team to do something, just kind of go out with just an idea and a prayer,
Yeah, I guess so. Could you ever see yourself getting back to that super small team mentality? Because Housemarque, I mean, that's still a decently sized team, right?
Yeah, I mean, they got, probably, all told, maybe 15, 20 guys on the game at some point, obviously you've got all the specialties now, you got sound guys, you got, character rigging, particle guys. There's the whole specialized programming, and it's almost kind of like a mini Hollywood thing. But I think that I mean, unfortunately, I think my tech chops are a little rusty. So I think I'm gonna, I really need. I'm more of a manager than a coder these days. I don't think you want to see my code in a game anymore. But,
does a game like Nex Machina still feel personal for you, though? Or do you think it still feels as personal as Robotron is to you for every single person that worked on this new game?
I think so, yeah. And because I mean, everybody's crafting. It's just like, I think at Housemarque, they're really kind of that craftsmanship, those long winters. If your whole thing was creating plasma beams, I mean, the technical artists doing that stuff really threw their souls into that and crafted this incredible game. And so I think you really, as you play the game, you see kind of the craftsmanship and the love. I mean, you kind of call it putting the love in a game, and like you can tell when a game is not loved, and it kind of falls flat. It's like true love of developing a game. It's putting crap in there that is really not necessary. It's like it's that extra little polish, that extra little thing that makes you feel cool. Maybe no one will ever notice that, but that's like true love in game development.
True love is just willing to burn your weekends and stay late.
Exactly. Burn your life to get the ultimate particle beam, man.
Well, hey, you've been in the industry for so long, in a good way. I'm wondering, do you have a favorite developer out there? Do you feel like there's some undersung heroes that they're out there of game development that you have really been impressed by throughout your years?
God, there's there'd be too many to name. I mean, there's just so many incredible. I mean, right now there's like 2 million apps on the or 10 million apps. I don't know what it is, but there's such a cornucopia of games out there. I mean, I don't think gamers have ever had a better chance to play amazingly innovative product. And obviously with now, the online stuff, and with Steam just opening it up for indie developers and things. God, it's a golden era, and it's kind of like, if you don't like what games you see out there, go make a game of your own, man. It's like it's wide open for anybody that has the time and the insanity.
Are some of your old games have they been ported to iOS?
I think I don't think there's been literal ones. I mean, there was a lot of porting to the consoles, but I don't think there's been I don't think any completely faithful reproductions. And I mean, it's kind of tough because especially like a twin stick shooter,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get that interface, with a touchscreen. And it's funny how it really is hard to. A hardcore joystick game is very hard to emulate with the iPad. I mean, it's kind of like iOS can do the touchscreen that allows you to do all these new genres. Really cool, but I think that's one thing it suffers on, and it just I don't know. I love having like the joysticks physically attached to something huge that I can just like wrestle with and like throw around almost.
So you're not into the MAME scene as much then? Do you feel like it loses something when it's emulated on a computer?
Yeah, I do. I really do, because you just don't, unless you can really get a great control. But I think there's always a compromise when you have a general control system. I was always really picky, like exactly the length, the shaft on the Robotron knobs, and it's like a big deal to me. It's like I probably nobody gives a shit, really, but it was a big.
I get it, man. Hey, real quick, I want to pick your mind on some of the greatest arcade games that maybe people don't know about. What do you think? What arcade games are under the radar that you've always really appreciated? You're welcome to say some of your own as well.
I guess obviously some of the obscure ones. I mean, there was a super obscure game by a guy named Tim Skelly, who was a designer back in the day for Cinematronics, and I think there's amazing vector games that he worked on. But I guess one thing that I think was done by I think the guy's name was Warren Davis, I believe, and maybe maybe with Tim Skelly, it's called Reactor. It was a very obscure arcade game where you were kind of trying to balance a nuclear core that was melting down. And God, I don't even know if that even exists anymore, but it will be on MAME, and very interesting particle physics and crazy stuff like that. There was actually a very crazy game also in the vector era. It was called Oops. And I have no idea who did this one, but it was actually it was about birth control.
What?
And I think you were actually, I forget if you were the sperm or the egg, but there was I think you were maybe defending the egg, and then if you messed up, one of the sperm got in, then that was Oops. So
is this an American game? That sounds great.
A very bizarre title. The weirdest thing was I remember, it's funny, we were doing Smash TV, and we had a young lady, I think her name was Lynn Young, and she was our artist, and she wanted, she was like, we were brainstorming like, what is our next game, and she's like, I want to make a game about growing plants. And we're like just cracking up, like, what a stupid idea that would be, who would ever play a game about growing plants? This is like, it's like watching paint dry or something. And, of course, 2 decades later, Farmville,
even Harvest Moon takes off. Yeah. There's an audience for that stuff, man.
I mean, we could have had Farmville, 2 decades before, but, it's, some visionaries have their blind spots, I hate to say.
That's awesome. Hey, before I let you go, I would love to hear the story of your cameo on NewsRadio. I'm a huge NewsRadio fan. What was that whole saga like? How did it come to be? You popped up in the episode where Dave Foley's character got addicted to Stargate Defender, I do believe.
Right. Exactly,
okay.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was the producers on the show were like, one of the producers in particular, I think his name was Paul something or other.
Was it Paul Sims?
And totally he was just like a total Stargate addict, and like, so he's like trying to, how do I how do I somehow fit Stargate into a plot, of NewsRadio? And then he's like, yeah, you got to come down to the studio and, see all this stuff. And like, okay, so I get down there and it was pretty wild, just the whole Hollywood scene of, I mean, they'd be shooting, everything's happened. It's such warp speed in Hollywood. I mean, every week they make an entire show, it's like, and obviously like video games, you spend like years and years, and you may never finish the damn thing. But I mean, literally like in a week, Monday morning they come in like, okay, what the hell are we going to make our show about? And they're like, okay, blah, blah. They start writing stuff. They start cranking stuff. And then they're shooting. I guess when on, Thursday or Friday, they start shooting and they could shoot half the show and go, this is not working. We need to rewrite, and then some guy comes, the script guys and writers come up and they'll like rewrite the show on the spot in like half an hour, and then continue shooting. And it was just wild, seeing Phil Hartman and all the talent on the show, and just kind of hanging out in the Hollywood studio for a day. It was kind of a dream come true, and I got to be delivery man number 2.
So how does that work? Do people do the other actors, does Phil Hartman know who you are, what you're doing on set, or is it just like, oh, I guess there's some other extra here, no big deal?
Yeah, it was just some weird guy, and they gave me some, they dressed me up. They had like the delivery man costume, and they're so into their their own thing that who's this? I mean, video game guy, whatever,
But Paul Sims was like kissing your ass the whole time. That must have been nice.
The producers. I think there was like some of the guys were like, "Oh man, this is amazing." Other guys like, "Who the f is this guy?" It's like, let's get on with the show. What is this? Come on, it's just fanboy crap. We got a sitcom to shoot. Let's move on. But it was an awesome day to just see how Hollywood worked out. And I wish as game developers we could do that. We could like design a game in a week. Just like crank it out and like boom,
Just it'd be so fun to take like a talented studio, like a crazy studio like a Naughty Dog or a Rockstar, and just keep them on that schedule. Just like, hey, you'll be doing a game jam every week throughout the entire year, and we'll release it all in one bundle. People would be super into that.
Yeah, that would be like a different chapter every different DLC every week. It just the toughest thing in games though. It's like it seems like your first pass is always garbage, so it's like, it's kind of, somehow it always is like, you think you're going to do it in a week, but then it's like you redo it 2 or 3 times and then finally it's good, and that's always the tough thing in game development. It's you're never done.
Yeah. But life's going well for you these days?
It's cool, man. It's the crazy thing is there's kind of like this arcade revival, which is I can't, it's like my entire life. It seems like, people would ask me, well, what are you doing, Gene? And I'm like, hey, what's going on? Like, oh, I'm doing arcade games. Like, oh yeah, didn't that like die like 30 years ago, And, it's like, well, no, dude, they still have them, And it's like, but actually now it seems like there actually is kind of an upswing in the arcade scene. And I think partly we're able to do just some really crazy titles, and we got these super big screens now. In fact, we're doing this the Space Invaders game that has a 10-foot tall LED screen. So we have every pixel from the original Space Invaders is a LED, and so we got it's like, I don't know, 60,000 LED lights, and it's like this super intense. You almost go blind playing this thing, but
that sounds awesome.
But it's like the ultimate retro, it's a 10-foot Space Invaders, and we kind of mixed it up a little bit. We threw a couple of machine guns in there just to keep things fresh, and so
I don't understand. It's bizarre. Well, hey, anything else you want to talk about, Eugene, before I let you go?
I think that's cool. I think it's fine, man. I just want to say, I love your magazine, man.
Oh,
I love your show, man. You guys, it's just, you got such, Game Informer is just been there for players forever, and man, you guys keep going, man, because it's awesome, man. I love reading your stuff and seeing your stuff online.
God bless you, Mr. Jarvis. Thank you so much for those kind words. Well, thank you so much for joining us.